Hey girls, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, I'm so happy you're here. I spent years trapped in this cycle of like crazy diets and calorie counting and honestly just dealing with a lot of self-doubt, feeling like things would never change. But I lost 45 pounds and completely transformed my life. And I wanna share my story with you because I know firsthand how painful and isolating and frustrating it can be when you feel like you have tried everything and nothing's working. It honestly just feels hopeless. But I did it, and I know if I can do it, you can do it too. So hopefully by sharing my experience, you'll feel encouraged and inspired in your own journey. I really think about it, I struggled with weight since like 3rd grade, and more on that later, but I wanna give you kind of the full picture of where I was at when I started losing the weight, how long it took. So when I hit my rock bottom, like I was at the point where everything needed to change. I was about 168, 170 pounds. I wore a size 12 to 14, kind of depending on the brand, and I'm 5'5". I like to say I'm 5'6", like if I stand up with really good posture. And then when I lost all the weight, it took about 6 months. And now like looking back, there's a lot I could have done differently that maybe would have had it go a little faster, but I'm proud of the way I did it, and I'm gonna share exactly what I did. But it took 6 months and I got down to about 122 pounds and was wearing a size 4. So now fast forward to today, I've gained about 10 pounds or so since then. So I'm more like 132, 134, but I'm still a size 4 because my body composition has changed. When I first lost all that weight, I just like lost a ton of fat. I wasn't doing any strength workouts. Like I just lost fat and weight. And so I was pretty thin. So I'm gonna go way back to where it started because the fact it started in 3rd grade, I don't think is only my story. I talk to women every single day that have memories from kindergarten, elementary school, like where you really can pinpoint your awareness of your body image and where things started to get a little distorted. And it's so sad when I think back now to what a like beautiful young girl I was, but at the time, kids are mean. Like kids are really mean in school, and I was the chubbier of my friends. Like when I look at photos, yes, I'm slightly bigger, but I still just look like a healthy, normal girl. And I think it's so sad that those words and things that people use when you're so young stick with you, and they start creating stories and narratives we tell ourselves that maybe people didn't keep saying things to me as I got older, but those stories really stuck with me and just became my identity. And I started identifying and believing that I was the chubbier friend. So as young as 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, I remember just having so many insecurities when it came to pool parties, what bathing suit I was wearing, how my belly was looking, if I could have the ice cream other kids were having or the pizza, things that a kid should not be thinking about and a young woman should not be worried about at all. But these are the things that were flooding my mind all the time. 5th grade going into middle school, I think it got worse and worse because that comparison becomes even more prominent. There's well, back then there's like magazines, social media now that you're looking at and seeing different bodies and comparing yourself against them. Plus the body dysmorphia I think we all have, and the way we perceive or the way we see ourselves is very distorted compared to how other people see us. In that time as a young woman, as puberty hit, I was the first one in my school and like class to start getting boobs, and I was going through all these changes pretty young. Like I got my first period in like I think 5th grade, and your body just starts to change. That felt so uncomfortable, and I added to the pain and added to the insecurities that I was already feeling. And that's where some of the dieting started to happen. I remember being at my grandma's house and sneaking things out of the fridge and sneaking candies and being so ashamed of it, taking them into the little areas because I didn't want people to see what I was eating. I remember then other times where I would literally like not eat all day and like hide my lunches and give them to other people because I was like, I shouldn't be eating this. I need to like lose some weight. And I'm like 11 years old. High school for me is where I feel like it really started to take a darker turn though. And it wasn't just the sneaking things here and there and wasn't just feeling self-conscious and insecure. I started dealing with a little bit more depression. I think that having like the independence I had and having some money because I worked, I was able to have access to buy different foods, like not eat all day and then just like binge out at night or go and get like burgers with my friends at fast food during lunch but eat nothing else all day long. I was getting diet pills. All of that stuff started around like the second half of high school. And I think that what happened there as well in relationships, I had a boyfriend all through most of high school and into my college years, but in part of high school it was like the first time I found out he cheated on me. And there's a lot of emotion that goes into that. And I think at that point I started using food as a coping mechanism. So I had already already had these insecurities and already like into dieting, but now I was using it to binge out a little bit when I was really sad. And then I'd go into like extreme dieting because I wanted to get really skinny, because I thought like, well, the only reason I was cheated on is because I'm not thin enough, I'm not pretty enough, I don't have enough confidence, like, and I will get all those things if I get skinny. And so I would go days without eating much at all and try to lose weight and drop 10 pounds and then go binge and gain all this weight back. And it was never anything sustainable. It was so unhealthy. But looking back, it was the most unhealthy, not only physically because of what I was doing to my body, but mentally, how I was abusing food and how I was allowing it to really be a control of my emotions, and my self-worth was wrapped up in my body versus in me. I realized that everything I believed about how worthy I was of being loved, being in a relationship, being attractive, all of this was all just wrapped up in my physical body, and more than just my physical body, in my weight. So fast forward to college, that's when I really started to look for validation in all the wrong areas. I was not happy with my body. And so I got more access to more diet pills. I was taking tons of fat burners. I would go without carbs, coffee diets, lemon water, basically diet, every extreme thing I could do just to lose a few pounds, because I truly believed like that would make me happy. That would make me feel better. That would make me more worthy and more desirable. It was shallow and hollow and empty, and there was no good that came from that. I would get sick, lethargic. Meanwhile, I'm also dealing with all these symptoms from hypothyroidism, and my hair is falling out. I feel like all of my excess weight was just because I have this thyroid issue. I was lethargic. All of this is coming to a head in my college years. So I'm treating my body like garbage. I'm doing things I should not be doing and have no business doing. Relationships with men, everything just was not healthy. I was partying a ton. I seemed happy, but I was dealing with the depression. Go from these extremes of turbo exerciser, working out like 2 hours a day, going for crazy long runs, doing crunches a million times in my house, eating like a bird, to then the opposite, partying, going out a ton, drinking excessively, eating excessively, not caring, and just being like, nothing's ever gonna change, why bother? And it was taking a toll on me mentally and obviously physically. But I think the mental component is what I really kept coming back to, because I started losing myself. I felt, oh, I'm gonna cry. I had no idea who I was, and no clue. I didn't know who I wanted to be. I didn't know who I was. I feel like I lost myself. I feel like the girl that I had always believed I was just gone. That goodness and that pureness and that joy was just gone. I was robbed of all of it. And I found myself graduating college completely lost. I was coming out in really ugly ways, in the ways I was treating my friends, the ways I was treating my family. Relationships were rocky, and I hit my rock bottom. This is the question I get asked every day, like, what finally made you change? What finally motivated you to actually get healthy? Because it's not just about losing weight. Being healthy is a lot more than that. I had to get healthy here first. I had to get healthy here, and then I had to start making healthier choices to the way I was moving my body and how I was treating my body and nourishing my body. That was secondary, right? And the weight was a result of that. And that's what really needed to change for me, is I'd always focused on just this result, right? My why, if you will. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't have a way to label it, but it was always kind of the result. Like, I want to be skinnier. I want to be a certain size. I want to lose 20 pounds, whatever it was the result. That's why it could never last. That's why it was never maintainable. That's why it was never a lifestyle. So I really had to change my why to stop focusing on this physical thing of losing weight or being a certain number on the scale. And my why had to become a lot deeper. It had to be more meaningful. And for me, that was to feel good, because I felt like garbage and I wanted to feel good so bad. And I didn't know what needed to happen. I just knew what couldn't happen anymore. It had to be different. And really my rock bottom moment, the brief story of it was, I was living at home, and it was in the midst of this, dealing with all these emotions and not knowing how to express it, not knowing what was happening. And my dad, I've shared this story a few times, but he's like the kindest, most loving teddy bear of a dad in the whole world. And I think he just asked me like how my day was, and I snapped at him like to get out of my room. Like, I just lost it. And I think it was the Lord just like opening my eyes in that moment to be like, what is happening? This is not you. And I really had to reflect. It had nothing to do with my body. It was just the person I had become was unrecognizable in the saddest way. And I didn't want to be that person anymore. I knew I didn't want to be that person. And that's where things had to change. So my why had to go away from being skinny, being healthy. I had to accept that my body might never change. And that is hard to do. But I had to be okay with my body might just stay like this forever. I don't care. I have to do things to treat my body well. I have to get my head right. I have to take care of myself. That's where I had to start. I had to get to that point where I was willing to just say, it's not about this anymore. It's really about feeling good and being aware of that. So that was my wake up call. Like that moment was just like knocking on the door, like, hello, let's go. And if you haven't had a moment like that, it's okay. Not everyone's are gonna be that clear. It's not gonna look like that. But if you are feeling like, gosh, like I am sick of feeling this way. I'm sick of feeling sick. I'm sick of feeling these emotions and physical things that come with not being my best and treating myself the best. That could be a wake up call enough. Maybe watching this video is your wake up call. Just know you're not alone and it is never too late to start. So I started with my mindset. I realized that I had to get this right, like I said. And so I was really focusing on how I was feeling physically and mentally every single day. I started reading my Bible. I started doing devotionals. I started praying. Like people are like, how did you get motivated? I realized that motivation was not just gonna happen for me. I didn't want to work out every day. I didn't want to eat healthier foods. Like that's not fun, right? But I knew I needed to do things differently. And so for me, it was like a lot of prayer for change and a lot of journaling and devotionals to help just feel inspired as a person waking up every single morning. Realizing that I have one body, I get one chance to treat it as well as I possibly can. And I was totally just taking that for granted. And it's gonna catch up with you later in life if we don't start now. Especially having hypothyroidism, I knew nutrition was an important part of this, and I knew that I had never done nutrition right. I tried to not label things as bad or good because I know that like I didn't want to have that emotional tie to it, but I wanted to do things that were like, make me feel like crap, make me feel good. And so I started adding more vegetables to my plate. That was the easiest thing to do first, is just like getting those greens in. And I started really journaling and notating for a couple of weeks at least. I remember what foods made me feel good when I ate them. I was like, I have energy and I don't feel bloated, and I like, okay, I feel fine. Or the things I'd eat that'd be like, oh, some of those were healthy foods too. And when you really think about how food makes you feel, like physically makes you feel, not guilt, none of that, just physically, it helps make it so much easier to make different choices, because you're like, I don't want to feel this way. Every time I eat this, I feel icky and I didn't want to feel that way anymore. So it just made it easier to start like making better choices more consistently because I felt better and I felt more energized. I also started working out every day, but I started small. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I did 10 minutes a day because I knew that if I went the way I did it before, where it was these big extreme like workout programs, like DVDs or like crazy mile runs, like it was not gonna last, and I'd hit a wall eventually, like I did every single time. So I just committed to 10 minutes a day. Most of that was walking because that's what I knew how to do. Some light jogging at times, crunches in my room, looking at magazines or like websites for like different exercise moves. And I just started doing a few things every day just to build the habit, because that's what I needed. I just needed to move my body. I was at the time still struggling with a lot of like low energy from my thyroid stuff. So I just was like, I just need to show up and create the discipline and create the habit, because that's something I had never done before. And I wanted to get past the 2-week mark. That was like one of my biggest goals. I remember in the beginning is being like, hey, when I hit 2 weeks, like I'm gonna keep going. So I kept it small and eventually built on that. And it's crazy because like a lot of the things I started doing at the time, as I started finding them working and like I was losing weight and I was feeling stronger, I started kind of building the programming that I have now in my Move app way back then. Before I was a certified personal trainer, before I actually knew what I was doing, but some of those initial like moves and structures that I did, I still carry into my workouts today. One of the first things I noticed as I was making these changes, like a couple months in, because I did not weigh myself. I weighed myself in the very beginning. I did not weigh myself throughout because I didn't want to be encouraged by the scale. I didn't want to see the number going down and be like, okay, I'm doing good, and then fall back into my old habits, because that's what I did every other time. So I didn't want that. I like was really trying to be mindful of the things that used to trigger bad habits in the past. But there was some like non-scale victories that I used. And I think one of the biggest things I noticed was just my energy levels. And as someone who struggled with hypothyroidism, who felt like, oh, I'm too tired to work out, like I don't want to do that, I realized the more I did it consistently and the more I just did things that made me feel good every day, my symptoms started to go away. Nutrition had a huge impact on that. It made the biggest difference. So my hair stopped falling out. I stopped having headaches all the time. I wasn't getting these burning eyes. I had less constipation. I had more energy. Those were the things that I was like, oh my gosh, it's working. I didn't even really realize that I was losing that much weight because, again, body dysmorphia, but like I just felt good. This was like a new addiction in a healthy way where you just are like, wait, this feels really good. How do I get more of this? And one thing I realized that happened in the midst of all of this is I met Ryan. I met my husband. He met me at my heaviest. Like I hadn't really lost any weight at that point. I was just like making these changes. And I think it was the most beautiful thing because I had finally accepted myself where I was at. And that's when I met the person who was gonna like love me for who I was, where I was at. And we've been able to like go on this journey together and grow. I always thought I had to be like this version of myself to meet my person, like my healthy, strong, toned version. I met him then and he loved me then. And I think that's just like a beautiful testament to like, as you change your own heart and your mindset and how you see yourself, it opens you up to be able to allow others to see you for who you really are and like find your worth for who you are, not what your physical body is. And really fast, I just want to pause because I think it's important. I know if you're watching this, you have probably been on some type of fitness journey. You've probably at least tried to lose weight at one point. So I want you to take a second and just comment with one thing that is a non-scale victory you've had this year. I think it's super, super, super important that you constantly come back to those and look at them because while the scale can be a good baseline, obviously I weighed myself at the beginning. I wanted to kind of know where I was at and I wanted to see like where I got at the end. It can be a good like foundation. It is not the most important thing, and all these other little things and the way we change our mindset and the habits that we form are so much more important. So tell me one thing, find one thing. I know there's one thing you can be proud of. Okay, so the maintaining part was gonna be like the biggest change, but what I realized was because I had struggled with ever keeping the weight off before, but I was not the same person. I was not doing things the same way. So it wasn't actually a struggle to keep it off because this is the first time in my life I actually just made it a lifestyle. I created these habits that were part of my routine. I wasn't doing a diet. I wasn't doing a new crazy program to try to shed pounds. I was changing my life. I was changing it day by day, little incremental steps. So there was nowhere to go back to. Like I felt too good to decide to just like throw in the towel one day. It just became who I was. And I think that's what was so eye-opening for me to be like, oh my gosh, maintaining it's not hard when you do it the right way. I had just never done it the right way. I think the craziest part is like through my journey, through that time losing all the weight, and now as a certified personal trainer and sports nutritionist, I can really say like losing weight isn't hard. It's actually quite simple. Like the things you need to do in order to lose weight are so much easier than how we make them. We overcomplicate it so much, but it isn't easy either. It's not something you can just flip the switch and everything changes because we have had these unhealthy habits and unhealthy mindset for so long. You really have to like retrain yourself. So for me, you know, the one thing I wish I would have had looking back on that whole time, I'm so glad I met Ryan at the time because he was this for me, but I wish I would have had some type of support system. I wish I would have had a community like Team LSF, like this community and all you girls to be able to lean on and have that support and accountability because I had to do it pretty much on my own and that was really a lot harder. The foods to eat, moving our body more, those things we can do, but it's the hard days. It's the days you don't feel like it. It's the days that you feel tired or you're stressed out and everything's piling up on you that you just want to like give up and not show up. So two things that I feel like I just constantly come back to, like during that time, I had to say it over and over and over again. Like if you have mantras or affirmations, these are them. These were mine. It's one, I can do hard things because it was hard. It wasn't complicated, I should say, but it's not easy. It was hard for me because I was just so stuck in what I thought was the way to do it. And I had to completely change that. And the second one was do it anyway. So when it sucks, when it feels hard, when it's uncomfortable, when you feel out of place, when you don't know if it's working, do it anyway. And I had to keep coming back to those because otherwise it was too easy for me to start to like slip into my old ways and old habits until it became who I was. Now it's who I am. But it took a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. All that weight I put on did not happen in 3 weeks. It happened over the course of years of treating my body like garbage. So I didn't expect results in a certain time frame. I didn't even know what those results may or may not be. I knew that I just had to change who I was at my core and my daily habits, and whatever happened, happened. And what happened was I lost 45 pounds and completely changed changed everything about my life. And it 100% can happen for you. You are not alone in this. I know it can feel super lonely. I know how isolating it can feel because I felt that. It was hard and painful. I've been through this journey. I'm here to support you. All of the women here are here to support you. So please, 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 girls, like, comment down below, share your story, share what you're struggling with, and even more importantly, read the other comments. And if there's girls that you resonate with their story and what they're going through, encourage them or ask them questions. Like, let's talk to each other here and create just an incredible support system for one another, because it is not easy going through this journey. It's not easy to make real lasting change that actually sticks. I know. I hope by hearing my story a little bit more, it kind of helps give you hope and encouragement to know, like, you can do it too. I don't know what your situation is, where you're at right now, but you 100% could have this story. You could be sitting here sharing yours and inspiring, and you never know who is looking at you for inspiration. So be that inspiration for yourself, make that change for you first and foremost, and just know it absolutely is possible. The last time I shared my story here, we were about 300,000, and now we're over 800,000 women as part of Team LSF. So thank you, girls, for being here. Thank you for being a part of this community. If you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I have giveaways every week for my subscribers. All you have to do is comment down below and hit that like. I love you all so much. If you want more of my story, if you have questions, drop it in the comments. I will be in here answering them all week long. But I just love you and appreciate you guys. And just know I'm here for you.